What's up, y'all? Today we're talking about inversions. Now, what in the world is an inversion? Well, it's a form of the word invert. So when you invert something, you're turning it upside down, right? So I had a music theory professor in college, and he had a famous saying that he would always say at the beginning of class, and he would say, "Music is not coffee." So what happens when you turn coffee upside down? You get a mess, as some of us, I guess, are doomed to learn the hard way. But when you turn a chord upside down, you kind of just get the same chord, right? So if I just play a C down here, and I play the chord, I'm going to take the C here, I'm going to put it up here, effectively inverting that chord. Now I can take the E, do the same exact thing, move it up to the top, flipping it over again, and as you can hear, they pretty much all sound like the same chord, right? So we can agree that inverting a chord doesn't really change the chord. It doesn't change the function of the chord, but it does kind of change the shape of what that chord looks like and feels like in your hand. What happens when we actually put this C up top? You can see that instead of there being an equal distance now, which there's a third, now when we put the C up here, we got a fourth now. So this is kind of interesting because the chord hasn't changed, but the sort of structure of the chord has changed a little bit. Let's do the same thing now if we take the E and we put it up. Now we still have a fourth, but the fourth is now on the bottom as opposed to in this one, the fourth was on the top. And as you may have guessed, if we take the G and move it up to the top, now we're pretty much back where we started. We got a perfectly equidistant third and a third. So that is pretty much all there is to inversions as far as inverting chords. One quick little baby challenge that you can do is obviously take your C chord and invert it, but take it to the next level. Take any combination of notes that you can make. So I'll just pick one randomly here. Okay, so we got a D, we got an F sharp, G sharp. And so we can also invert this the same exact way. Just take the D and just move it up to the top. Now we got this. Take your bottom note, again, the F sharp, and go ahead and move it up to the top. We got this one, and the same exact thing happens if you take G sharp, move it up to the top, and we got this G sharp. You should end up exactly with the same chord that you started with. Now remember, last lesson was all about taking a major chord, turning it into a minor chord, so you can do the same thing here. Invert your major chord, and then invert the minor chord. And if you do it correctly, again, you should end up the same exact chord that you started with. Now, I gave you a little teaser on the last class about the intervals, the perfect fourth and the perfect fifth. And so if we invert a fourth, for instance, we can take the C, put it up to the top. Now, our fourth has magically turned into a fifth. Kind of cool, right? So a fourth kind of is a fifth, just inverted. And the opposite is also true. We take our fifth above C and we invert, we get a fourth. So any fourth, as you invert, it's going to turn into a fifth, a fourth, a fifth, a fourth, and you end up with a happy little square dance hoedown. So you might be wondering, why in the world would we have to invert stuff if it doesn't really change the chord? It's still the same exact chord. What's the point? Well, this brings us into kind of a heavier aspect of music theory known as voice leading. So I'm sure you're all familiar with the term melody. Melody is just, it's the top note, right? It's the singing part. It's the main monophonic, single note at a time part of the song. So, Old MacDonald. There's our melody. We can turn this into a harmony by taking our left hand, playing the chord. Okay. Now, why would we want to invert in this situation? Well, what if you want to do something like this? Now we're sounding a little bit more professional here. What was that I just did? First of all, I'm playing it as usual, melody up here, little happy chord on the bottom. We can go here, and what this gives us is instead of just a regular old F chord, we can invert it, bring the F up there. So we started there, you can bring it up, and so basically we can invert these chords in such a way that the top note of the chord is the same note as the melody note. Let the right hand be playing not only the melody, but also a nice little harmony, a nice little chord underneath. So if you know your chords and your inversions, you have this sort of power at your disposal. So, final challenge here. We understand half steps, whole steps. We understand the idea of a scale and how that relates to the idea of being in a key. So we've talked about a couple of the important chords in the key, namely the 1 chord and the 5 chord. So at the very beginning of the first class here, I played this as my 5 chord. What is going on here? How is this the same as this? It has to do with inversion. So if we take a G chord and we add a little snazzy 7th to that, this F, just to jazz it up a little bit, make it a little bit more fun, then we have 4 notes here which we can invert at our will, taking the bottom note, putting it on top, taking the bottom note, putting it on top, taking the bottom note, putting it on top, and we end up with the same chord. So when I play this, I'm actually just playing the same exact G chord, again with the little jazzy F in there. Without the F, it would just be this. And with the F, it has a little bit more punch to it. So my final challenge for y'all is to take the 1 chords and the 5 chords that we learned, invert them as many ways as you can, convert them back to minor chords, and now you're starting to see the amazing amount of variety that we have in music, even though there's only 12 notes. Keep in mind, different combinations are going to have different functions, different sounds, different feelings, and emotional qualities to them. So that's all I got for you guys today. Hopefully you're all practicing and keeping your chops up among the quarantine out there. Make sure to subscribe to this channel if you want to see the future videos, all my future lessons, live shows, all of that. Hit the like button if you're feeling the threads. Definitely share this video with musicians of all ages, all shapes, all sizes, all experience levels, and that's how you get the money.